Hi friends! In this episode we'll be talking about evaluating your goats to see if they're healthy, need any hoof work, and if their body condition is right for the season they're in. I'll talk you through determining body condition score, why it's important, and how to use it to improve the overall health and productivity of your goat herd. And yes, it's giveaway day. Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goatwise podcast. Are you longing to raise goats and other animals for food but don't know where to start? Do you want to be more self-sufficient and less dependent on the grocery store? Do you wish you had a mentor to walk you through raising livestock? Hi, I'm Millie, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. For 15 years, I've been on a mission to raise all of our own meat, eggs, and dairy. Here, we'll talk about raising goats and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock. Last week, we hit a milestone on the podcast, 5,000 downloads. So amazing. In honor of that, I'm giving away 5 free strategy sessions. Because I know some of you listening are wanting to raise goats. I know some of you are wondering what kind of fence you need. I know some of you want to get more self-sufficient or even live off-grid. If you're one of those people, I want to talk to you. I'm giving away 5 free livestock strategy sessions where we'll get on Zoom for an hour and we'll get a plan in place and the next right steps for you to reach your livestock or homesteading goals. To get in the drawing for one of these strategy sessions, all you need to do is leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, screenshot it, and then email the screenshot to hello@getgoatwise.com. That's it. If you've already left me a review, you can share the podcast on your Instagram stories, tag me at dry.creek.livestock, and I'll get you entered into the drawing as well. You can enter until midnight on November 2nd, and the drawing will be on November 3rd, and I'll email the winners with a link to schedule your strategy session. Here's what's happening on the ranch. Temps have been dropping into the 20s almost every night, so we decided to quit grazing with electric before we end up with the fence frozen the ground again. Starting to feed hay the last week in October feels a little defeating from a commercial production standpoint, but I have to remind myself that we're making progress every year on the fence, and if we're able to do the permanent fence that we're planning next year, we will be set up for a really great rotational grazing plan that will benefit the goats and the land. And we'll be using electric as a tool for targeted grazing rather than a necessity. We're feeding hay in the night trap for now to keep the goats out of our construction projects, but once fresh snow is on the ground, we'll feed them out on that, which will reduce potential parasite problems and get manure and organic matter out on the ground where it can be a real benefit instead of accumulating in the night trap. How will the snow keep the goats out of our construction projects? Goats don't like to break new trails in the snow, so they don't travel as much. They make a path to feed, water, and mineral, and they don't often go wandering out in deeper snow, unless there's something really desirable, like fresh hay. Now that the goats are in closer where we can get a good look at them, we're evaluating them for breeding season, which will start in 2 months. Last week, we talked about planning for winter feed. Today, I want to talk about evaluating the goats before breeding and then feeding for our goals. When we're evaluating the goats, we're primarily looking at hooves, overall healthy appearance, and body condition score. I'll touch briefly on the first 2, and then we'll dig a little deeper into body condition and scoring. I'm really pleased with how their feet are looking. The goats have had the freedom to travel a lot this summer, and their hooves are showing the benefit of that. At first glance, there are no does that are in desperate need of a hoof trim, and my back is thankful for that. Recommended timing for hoof trimming varies widely depending on terrain, so my recommendation is trim when they need it. Our goal is to have a herd of goats that rarely need trimming. We're selecting for does that can be turned out on range after a winter of hoof growth and no wear down because of the snow, and their hooves will naturally wear and return to their ideal state. There is definitely a genetic component to this, and we keep records of hoof care so that we can cull does that are high maintenance in the hoof care department. If your goats are kept in a confined area or on ground that is soft, they're more likely to need their hooves trimmed regularly. When you only have a few, it's not a big deal, and we'll cover hoof care in more detail in a future episode. The next thing we're looking at is an overall healthy appearance. Do they have an alert, bright look to their eye? Is their hair coat smooth? Any signs of injury or wounds? Are their ear tags in place? And since they've recently been weaned, any signs of mastitis or problems with their udder? I'll make note of anything that is important and add it to their record. One thing I love about goats is that their tail is a pretty reliable health indicator. If their tail is up, they're happy, comfortable, and healthy. If it's down, especially tucked, they're not feeling well and need some attention. If it's halfway in between, that's a goat to keep an eye on. Lastly, we evaluate body condition, called Body Condition Score, or BCS. This is a measure of body reserves available to the animal to use in times of need. Goats are scored on a scale of 1 to 5, with increments of 0.5 used to categorize an animal that falls between two of the described scores. A BCS of 1 would describe an animal that is emaciated and weak, and a 5 is a very fat, obese goat. Healthy goats should be between 2.5 and 4, and this varies depending on the time of year and your goals. Determining a body condition score requires handling the goats, not just looking at them from a distance. Fluffy goats can be deceiving. You're going to evaluate condition over 3 locations: the lumbar spine area, over the rib cage, and the sternum. The lumbar vertebrae have spinous processes that stick straight up and transverse processes that point out to the side. You can find these vertebrae and the transverse processes behind the last rib in the goat's rib cage. Feel the spinous processes. How rough or smooth are the points, and can they be grabbed between your thumb and forefinger? Find the transverse processes. Bend your fingers around them as if you're trying to grab them, and note how easy or difficult they are to grab. Easy to grab would be a thin, lower body condition score, and hard or impossible to grab would be a higher body condition score animal. Feel the ends of the transverse processes and pay attention to how bumpy or smooth they are, like feeling your knuckles when you make a fist versus laying your hand flat. Smoother indicates more fat cover and a higher score. Next, feel over the rib cage with your fingers closed together. You'll be feeling for the fat cover between and over the ribs. Again, a bumpy feel means less fat, and a smoother feel indicates more fat cover. Finally, feel the sternum. Reach from the front through and between the front legs to a point just behind the front legs. Pinch the fat cover over the sternum. If it's easy to grab and you can feel the cartilage and joints underneath, that is low fat cover. On the other end of the score is so much fat it cannot be grabbed, and it covers the joints and cartilage underneath. This is a very visual topic and so hard to explain on a podcast, so I'm going to link a pamphlet by Langston University that gives detailed descriptions for each body condition score 1 through 5, what you will feel, and they even shaved the hair off their demonstration goats in the pictures so you can see what you'll be feeling. You, however, do not need to shave your goats to determine body condition score. Once you get practiced at scoring, it only takes about 10 seconds. When I was in graduate school and we were recording body condition score on beef cattle, we would have 2 independent evaluators for each animal, record those scores, and then take an average. Since this is a subjective measure, it might help to have someone else learning how to body condition score along with you to limit personal bias. So why do we care about body condition score? If you know the condition of your goats and you know your goals, You can feed them to meet those goals while eliminating overfeeding and the problems that come with that. In a regular production cycle, this is what it looks like. Right now, the body condition score of our does is all over the place, ranging from 2 to probably 4. That seems like poor management, but it's expected this time of year. We just weaned those does, so the does that had twins and hadn't weaned them on their own are thin. They've been using their body reserves to feed 2 growing kids. Does that had singles or self-weaned are usually in the middle of the chart, while does that had March kids that are weaned and the replacement yearling does that don't have kids are on the upper end of the body condition score. Now that all the kids are weaned, the low body condition score does will regain condition quickly, and the body condition of all the goats will be a lot more consistent. A big part of my master's degree research involved body condition score and breed up in cattle. And what we found was that for cows with a low to average body condition score, the plane of nutrition the cows were on made a bigger difference than their actual numerical body condition score when it came to breed up. Were they gaining or losing condition at the time of breeding? If they were gaining condition, the conception rate was significantly higher, even for very thin cows, and maybe even more so. The overfat, high body condition score cows had a lower overall breed up. Whether this was caused by them being obese or the fact that their plane of nutrition almost certainly was declining because of their overfed status, I'm not sure. Regardless, fat cows and fat goats are usually going to have a lower breed up. Side note here, this is one of the many reasons I stopped taking in outside goats for breeding. People would bring a body condition score 4+ doe. I would see her come into heat, watch the buck breed her, and she wouldn't settle. I try to explain this to the owners, but there's always big disappointment when their chubby goat isn't pregnant. I understand it's easy to overfeed, especially when you only have a few goats and they love treats. But if you want them to breed up, you're going to have to keep them from getting overfat. Or if not, keep your expectations realistic when it comes to breeding. Back to plane of nutrition. Our goats will start to close the gap in the range of body condition score over the next month, and we'll have them on a maintenance level of feed because I don't want them to get fat. I expect their body condition score to average 2.5 to 3, 2 weeks before breeding, and at that point, we'll kick up their nutrition a notch just by adding extra feed. This will put their plane of nutrition on an increase through breeding season, as well as get their body condition score average up to 3.5. We want them to have a little more fat reserves during our cold winters, but it's all about timing that gain so that it has a positive effect on breeding as well. In episode 16, we talked about kidding results and how all of our does bred up in the first heat last year. I'm confident that our management plan for body condition score and plane of nutrition played a big role in that. There's a feeding method called flush feeding that is used in goats and sheep to increase fertility by purposefully increasing their nutrition starting a month or 2 before breeding. Where we're not using concentrates or a 2-month runway to achieve our goal, I'm not sure it qualifies as flush feeding, but some breeders may see it that way. I think for our herd, it's the combination of moderately increased plane of nutrition plus timing of breeding for maximum fertility that gets us the results we're seeing. We talk about timing of breeding in detail in episode 14. I want to quickly mention bucks and their nutritional management as it's a little different than the does. When the bucks come into rut, we move them into individual pens. We do this for 2 reasons. First, to keep them away from the does until the scheduled time, and so we can feed them up a little. They will lose a lot of condition during breeding season because, well, they'll be more interested in does than hay. So I like to see them go in with the does at a body condition score of 3.5 to 4. We don't want them fat by any means, but they need some extra reserves to draw from. By the end of 4 weeks in with the does, they'll be down to a 2 to 2.5 body condition score. I hope this helps you evaluate your goats going into winter and create a feeding strategy that complements your breeding plan. Body Condition Score is a valuable tool you can use to monitor not only the condition of your goats, but also the effectiveness of your feeding plan. It's a very visual concept, so definitely go check out the link and look at the diagrams and photos. And as always, come on over to the free community to ask questions or start a conversation. That's at bit.ly/getgoatwisecommunity. Lastly, don't forget to enter the giveaway to win a free strategy session. Go leave a review, screenshot it, email it to me, and you'll be entered. Hey there. Thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email linked in the show notes, and meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.